Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one. So here's the thing. My mother-in-law is from an extremely orthodox and conservative family. Rachel, my mother-in-law, has always been very cold and weird with me. But she has never come out and said anything against me or tried to insult me in any way because she has one son, that's my husband, and she doesn't want to get on his bad side. So she has always tried to keep things civil with me. Even if she doesn't like me much, she doesn't let it show that, obviously. And then my husband and I got engaged after dating for 3 years. And throughout the planning process for the wedding, she was just trying to be as controlling as possible until my husband actually asked her to back off. Even then, on the day of my wedding, she made things very difficult for me because right before lunch was about to be served after the ceremony and everything, she told me and my husband that we needed to wait. Apparently, she believed that instead of sitting with the guests and dining like normal people, I should serve our guests, especially the elderly guests, since this is my first day as a wife and I should accept the role of servitude. I thought that was a ridiculous thing to say. I don't know what generation believes that, and I found that very offensive because she said that specifically to me, not my husband. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if she's asking me to be respectful of the older generation, then I think the same thing should go for my husband as well. Anyway, before I could say anything, her in-laws spoke up and told her that in that case, she should have done the same thing at her wedding too. But she didn't, so she needs to cut out the crap now. And then my husband's maternal and paternal grandparents started bickering while Rachel just left the room fuming. After she stormed out, we didn't wait for her to come back. We went on with the events of the day, and a couple of hours later, we did see her around, and things seemed to be normal. The fight and everything had happened in private, but in public, everyone was behaving normally. So I assumed that everything was okay, and I did not want to let her upset me on my big day. So I forgot about it. But now it's been a couple of days, and she's insisting that I should apologize to her because due to my negligence, she's the one who got yelled at by her in-laws, and that was so easily preventable if I had just known better. She had been bothering me for a couple of days with phone calls and messages. And in the end, last evening, I flared up and I told her that I wished she had known better instead of having this terrible regressive attitude. And I told her that I was not going to put up with this anymore. I told her that I'm not interested in speaking to her anymore. And then I blocked her, and because of me, my husband has also decided to have no contact with her. From what I've heard from my father-in-law, she's miserable, and he's trying to get us to talk to her. But I don't want to. And because of me, neither does my husband. So that's what I feel kind of guilty about, that my husband is not speaking to her either. Am I an a-hole for refusing to talk to my mother-in-law right now? Not the a-hole. OP's mother-in-law didn't want a tradition. She wanted a power play. Notice how the servitude only applied to OP and magically skipped OP's husband, even though they are both equally married. If it was truly about respect for elders, she could have won, done it at her own wedding, and 2, expected her son to do it with OP. She tried to humiliate O on her own wedding day and then got mad when the older generation called out her hypocrisy. The embarrassment she's feeling now is the direct result of her own behavior, not OP's negligence. And now let's hear community's opinion. Your husband going no contact is not your fault. It's a consequence of her actions. He's an adult. He watched his mother try to turn his wife into a servant on her wedding day, then watched her harass you for days demanding an apology for something she caused. He made his own choice. Mother-in-law isn't upset that she hurt you. She's upset that her favorite manipulation tactic finally stopped working. That's not your burden to fix. She's miserable. Please just talk to her. Is classic flying monkey behavior from father-in-law. He doesn't want peace. He wants silence and the illusion of a happy family. He's not asking her to reflect, change, or apologize. He's asking you to swallow your own boundaries so he doesn't have to deal with drama. You tried being civil. She doubled down and demanded you grovel for her getting called out. You're allowed to decide that access to you and your husband requires basic respect. Honestly, I'd keep the block and enjoy your honeymoon in peace. If you cave now, the message you send is, throw a big enough tantrum and eventually we'll fold. Next time it'll be babies, holidays, childcare, names, everything. This is your first big boundary as a married couple, and you and your husband are actually on the same team, which is huge. You're not punishing her, you're protecting your sanity. Not the a-hole, and congrats on the wedding. Edit. Hi. So to answer a couple of your questions, yes, my mom was born and brought up here in America, and her parents are also American. It's just that her parents and their family happen to be extremely conservative. So she grew up with those views. In fact, my husband's paternal side of the family was also a bit like that, and that's why their match had been arranged by their parents, but they happened to like each other, so they got married. However, my father-in-law luckily happens to be a bit more progressive, and so he changed with the times, and so did his parents, and that's why my husband is not much like his mother's side of the family. My mother-in-law's side of the family unfortunately remained the same, rooted in those same out-of-date traditions. This whole serving the guest before sitting down to dine yourself, which was a part of her family's traditions, doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be mine as well. But for some reason, she just assumed that it had to be. And it was pretty surprising for me when I realized that she was being a total hypocrite when her in-laws said that she hadn't done that at her wedding. Her parents defended her by saying that she didn't feel like she had to come because they were following the paternal side of traditions, which was obviously just an excuse. She just didn't do it, but she wanted me to do it probably as a power play. Anyway, whatever the case is, so far she has been nice to me out of respect for her son. But even my husband has told me that in the past, he has had a lot of problems with his mother because of her outdated views. So even though he has always tried his best with her, their relationship has always been a little strained. And this time, he thought that she had been very disrespectful towards me, and pressuring me to apologize was taking it to another level. So he decided that he was not going to talk to her until I decided to forgive her myself, which I really don't think that I'm willing to do right now, because she almost spoiled the day of my wedding with her antics. Anyway, I hope this clears everything up and provides more context to the situation like you guys had asked for. Update. Hi. Thank you so much to everybody who took the time to comment on my post. So, my husband and I have decided that we are going to stick to our decision and that we are not going to talk to her, because honestly, right now, we want to enjoy our newlywed phase. In a couple of days, we are going to be leaving for our honeymoon, and we want to enjoy that to the fullest. So, the best way to go about that is to not engage with his parents at all, let alone his mom. Even his father has been acting very strangely ever since we stopped speaking to her, because usually he doesn't really get involved in family drama like this. He's more of the stoic kind. He likes to pretend that he doesn't know what's going on. But that's just so that he doesn't have to voice his opinion and drag himself into any mess. That's how he has always been. At least my husband has said so. And that's what I've noticed as well. Even on the day of the wedding, he did not get involved. But now he is coming off his way, too eager to try and solve this problem by getting us to apologize. It's not like he's defending whatever Rachel has said. Neither does he want us to apologize genuinely. He just wants us to say sorry for the sake of it. So at least the situation will be sorted out. He has told my husband that his mother is getting older, that she was just insecure and feeling a bit put out by the fact that she had not been able to contribute to the wedding planning as much as she had thought she had a right to, and that's why she got a bit crazy. But then she is his mom after all, so he should forgive her and move on. The ironic bit is that in order to forgive her, he is the one who has to apologize to her. And I don't know how that makes sense, and not just him. I'm expected to apologize even though I don't really have any fault here, except for the fact that I stood up for myself, and clearly she did not like that very much. Anyway, he has argued with his father enough, and my father has clearly decided that this time he does not want to get involved in the family drama. If he has picked the wrong side to be on, then so be it. It's his loss, to be very honest, because now we're not going to be talking to him either. We really don't have any other option left. They have made it very difficult for us to get along with them. especially by their behavior in the past couple of days. Before that, my relationship with my mother-in-law had been a bit weird, but at least it was not this bad. Now though, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Update 2. Hello. So, it's been a couple of days since my last update, and right now my husband and I are on our honeymoon. We thought that we would get a nice little break from his parents, but apparently that's not something that they agree with. We had been ignoring them for the past couple of days, like we had said we would, and we had muted all messages and notifications from them. We had not blocked them though, just in case anything important came up. I had mentioned in the beginning that my husband is an only child, and he said that he did not want to block his parents because he would feel extremely guilty if something bad happened, and they had been unable to contact him because he had blocked them just because he was mad at them. After all, regardless of their opinions and views, they had raised him with a lot of love that I cannot disagree with, and I thought it was practical. So neither of us had blocked them, but we had just muted them, and we kept checking their messages periodically, just in case they had anything important to share. But they did not. They just kept whining about the same things over and over again. It had come to a point where both of us felt like we were immune to their attempts to make us the villains, which just didn't care anymore, and we were only checking the messages out of duty and nothing else. But I guess they were offended at the fact that we were checking their messages, seeing it all, and not replying. So this morning, we woke up to a bunch of messages and missed calls from other members of the family, asking us about the drama that was going on. And we had no idea how they found out about any of that, because the incident on the wedding day had taken place in private, and nobody had really discussed it with anybody else. Only the people in the room knew. And I'm pretty sure that my parents or his grandparents would not have shared this information with anyone else. So we asked about it, and a couple of his relatives told us that his parents were going around complaining about us to everyone who would listen, and they had sent out a bunch of messages regarding us. I'll get the content of the messages later, but before that, I have to say that we were obviously furious, and we tried to contact them immediately to confront them about it, but we realized that we had been blocked now. And this happened right in the morning before we had even had breakfast. So both of us were pretty annoyed with the two of them. But then we decided not to let this get under our skin, because after all, we were still on our honeymoon, and we wanted to enjoy it to the fullest. So we decided to let it go, because it was not like we could get them to unblock us and then confront them about it. Besides, we thought about it with a cooler head a little while later, and we realized that even if he did confront them about it, there would be no point. It's not as if they were going to suddenly realize that they were mistaken and apologize to us. They were going to stick to what they believed, and they were going to continue behaving like this. At least this way, given what they had done, they could not pretend as if they were not the bad guys and were instead the victims. But regarding the relatives who had reached out to us, we did clear things out with them, and we told them what had actually happened. Not the warped narrative that my in-laws were trying to set, that we were being disrespectful. Apparently, they had told a bunch of people that after my mill had made that suggestion, I had flared up and screamed at her and called her names. And when she stormed out, my husband apparently told her that she was the one who had upset me, so she had to apologize. And when she had refused to do so, the two of us had cut them off. First of all, she had not made any suggestion. She had literally ordered me to stay back, not dine with the guests, and serve them instead. I know the tone of a suggestion, and her own was definitely not that. It was one of an order, and as for the screaming and name-calling, I think it's pretty obvious that I did not do any of that. And most of the relatives who had contacted us found it very weird that they were being dragged into this mess anyway, because it's not like they were going to be able to do anything about it. The only reason they had even reached out to us was that they felt like we had the right to know. And they were right about that. But apart from that, they wanted no part of this. And we actually had to apologize to them because this was quite embarrassing. I don't know what my in-laws were aiming to do, but all that they did was humiliate themselves and our family. Whether we like it or not, we still are associated with them. Anyway, we have decided that we are not going to let this ruin the rest of the holiday for us. We deserve to have fun on our honeymoon, and we're not going to let this spoil our mood. They can go ahead and send more messages. We have already said whatever we had to say. I'm pretty sure that at this point, it doesn't make a difference because nobody believes any of the things that they're saying. Update 3. Hey, so my husband and I came back from our honeymoon a couple of days ago. Life has gone back to normal now. We are going back to work, and after the incident on the honeymoon with his parents, we decided not to pay them any attention and just carry on as if nothing had happened, because as it is, they were only embarrassing themselves. We did not feel the need to get involved and say anything to them. So, we had been ignoring them, and we thought that they would be over everything by now. But instead, they decided to turn up at our house, demanding explanations for everything that had happened. I don't know, after everything that's happened, how they have the audacity to show up at our place and demand an explanation from us, as if we were the ones who had gone out of our way to create drama. My husband had half a mile to go out and speak to them, confront them, and give them a piece of his mind. But I was the one who stopped him because I knew for a fact it was not like they were going to try and understand. They were not here to reason with us and resolve anything. They were just here to pick a fight. They were here to get a reaction out of us. And if we went out and spoke to them, we would be getting even more involved in this drama. And that's exactly what they wanted, to pull us down to their level now. So somehow, I managed to calm my husband down. And I got him to stay inside while they kept banging at the door, ringing the doorbell 15 times, asking us to come out and talk to them. And they kept saying that it was very disrespectful of us to not even acknowledge their existence while they were standing right outside our door. And they said that this was all my fault. I don't know how it's my fault, but I'm sure that everything that goes wrong for them beyond this point is going to be my fault. So I have accepted it. Anyway, it was quite annoying. But when they did not leave, even after 10 minutes, I decided to call out to them, and I said that if they did not leave within the next 30 seconds, I would be calling the cops, and I was serious about it. They took that seriously, probably because they did not want to hurt their reputation more, and they left. But they definitely said a lot of horrible things about me before leaving loud enough for me to hear, and my husband did not like that at all. It was even more difficult to tell him to stay back, but somehow I managed. Anyway, this time we did not actually call the cops, but the next time that they do this, we definitely will, because they cannot keep bothering us like this and expect to get away with it. We haven't done anything to deserve this kind of harassment, and we won't put up with it. Update 4. Hi everyone. So, it has been a couple of weeks since we last heard from my in-laws. And once again, we were delusional enough to believe that maybe this time they have finally learned their lesson and they're going to leave us alone. But, of course, that's a little too much decency to expect out of them. I really don't understand what their problem is at this point. I am at my wit's end with them, and I don't know what to do. As if it was not enough that they were going out of their way to create drama with us. This time, they started targeting my family. I don't know what they were expecting to get out of this, but it was extremely insulting for me because just a couple of hours ago, my parents called me up and they told me that my in-laws had shown up at their place. My parents, of course, did not want to get caught up in this whole drama. So, when my in-laws showed up, they let them in and treated them very politely. But instead of taking and accepting that sign of respect from my parents, they decided to get even more disrespectful than they had been with us. And they started complaining about me right to my parents' faces. They told them that they had clearly not done a very good job of raising me because I was a total brat. I had no idea how to respect my seniors and how to act in front of my in-laws. They said that I was shameless and ill-behaved, and they blamed my parents for that. My parents were polite enough not to say anything to them. They just heard them out. And after my in-laws were done ranting, they told them to get out because clearly they were not here to speak to them respectfully and have a civilized discussion. Of course, my in-laws did not like that either. They started yelling at my parents, saying that they could see where I had learned everything from. And they told my parents that they were not going to leave until they called me up, got me to apologize to both of them, and they got my husband to start speaking to them again because apparently all of this is my fault. I have apparently started manipulating and brainwashing my husband against them, and that's why their son is not speaking to them anymore. So, for them, it's absolutely inconceivable that their son might not be talking to them because they are just horrible people in general. Anyway, they were acting insane and entitled. So, my dad told them that either they could clear out now, or he would call the police. And once again, when they were threatened by the cops, they did go out of the house. But instead of leaving, they decided to get in their car and kept driving up and down my parents' street, passing by their house every few minutes, probably just to intimidate them. That was the point at which my parents decided to finally call me up and inform me about what was going on, because earlier they had decided that they were not going to bother me while I was at work. At that point in time, they had no other option. So they told me what was going on, and immediately I decided to call my husband up, and I told him what his parents were doing. I wanted to leave it up to him how he wanted to deal with this, because honestly, I was having a quite busy day at work, and I could not bother myself to get involved in this. I told him what was going on, and I told him to handle it, and he apologized to me, and he said that he would. Honestly, I felt bad for him, because it felt as if his parents were now going out of their way to embarrass him and really just make life difficult for him. If I claimed to love my son as much as they did, I would never behave like this, doing things that would bring nothing but shame and humiliation for the person that I claim to love. Anyway, I got busy with a client meeting later, and I did not get the time to check my phone for the next 2 hours. By the time I finally did manage to check my phone, I had a bunch of missed calls and messages from my parents and my husband. Apparently, what had happened was that my husband had decided to unblock his parents and tried to talk some sense into them, but they had refused to listen. They claimed that until he personally showed up and spoke to them, they were not going anywhere, and that really got to my husband. So he decided to hang up on them, and he just called the cops. So that was all dealt with. And now he's thinking about going ahead and filing a restraining order against them. And he has advised my parents to do the same because obviously his parents have lost the plot. Now, personally, I think that at this point, given everything that's been happening, this was the only logical solution. We had been holding it off because my husband felt like he still had certain duties and responsibilities towards his parents that he had to fulfill as their only son. But now, though, we cannot use that as an excuse because they have obviously taken him for granted. So I think this is the only way to go ahead now. Update 5. Hey everyone. So last week, that whole thing with my in-laws happened, where they were harassing my parents and my husband decided to call the cops on them, but they got off with no charges. A few days after that, we decided to get in touch with a lawyer, and both my parents and I decided that we were going to file a restraining order against these people. So we did, and a couple of days ago, my in-laws were served. Now, of course, my husband has also filed for a protective order against them. And I know that they couldn't care less about whether they cannot get in touch with me or my parents in the future. But my husband is the only person they care about. So they are pretty desperate to get him to take that back and have been texting him and calling him from a burner phone, begging him to do something about this. They have been promising him that they are never going to repeat this kind of behavior ever again. They have been telling him that they are very sorry about everything and that they are willing to even apologize to me and my parents if that's what it takes. But all they want is for him to take back the restraining order and just talk to them because he's their only child. They can't live without him. Had this been a couple of weeks ago, my husband would have considered it. But right now, in the state of mind that he is in, he does feel guilty about it, which is why he has not blocked that number yet. But he's not going to change his mind. I can tell that he's not going to change his mind because I've never seen him look so determined about anything before. And honestly, I can't blame him for it because after everything that his parents have put both of us through, I think we have been patient enough with them. But they have taken us for granted. They have taken our patience for granted. And now it's high time that they face the consequences. It does feel kind of pathetic knowing that they are so desperate to get him back. But at the end of the day, I know that they screwed this up for themselves. At this point, everything that happened during the wedding seemed much more tame in comparison. And if I had known what they were capable of, then I wouldn't even have invited them to the wedding itself. I would have got my husband to cut them off much earlier if I'm being very honest. It might sound harsh, but that's how it is. But anyway, I just hope that they learn their lesson and that we get that restraining order against them soon, because I really just don't want to deal with this drama again. Update 6. Hi everyone. So, we eventually did end up getting that restraining order against them thankfully, and they won't be able to bother us again for a while. But before that was finalized, they did send one last email to my husband, saying that they were really sorry about everything that went wrong. They acknowledged the fact that they had been very difficult to deal with, and they wholeheartedly accepted our decision, because, clearly, if we were going through with something as drastic as this, then we must have given it a lot of thought. I don't know if they've ever been genuine, or if that was just a last-ditch attempt to get my husband to change his mind. But whatever it was, at least they acknowledged the fact that they were wrong. They acknowledged it a little too late. But nevertheless, the decision came through last week, and for a couple of days after that, my husband was a bit upset naturally because this was extremely tough on him, and I understand that. So, I decided to plan a weekend getaway trip for the both of us, because even though we had enjoyed our honeymoon, there was a phase in the middle where both of us were quite upset about whatever had happened with his parents. So, this time, just to cheer him up, I took him out on the trip, and after he came back, he seemed to be rejuvenated and much happier than before. Now, I just hope that we can try and move past everything that's happened and just enjoy our life without worrying about his parents and what they are up to next. As of now, both of us are happy with everything, and we hope that at least for the next 2 years, we don't have to deal with any more drama.